All right, this is the Algebra 1 Unit 4 Lesson 4 video over inverse and direct variation. So direct and inverse variation are yet another way of looking at the relationship between two variables. So direct variation is when those variables are divided. The value of their division remains the same for every pair of x and y. So if I do y divided by x of one pair, it's going to be the same answer as any other pair, y divided by x. Whereas inverse variation is when the product of those two variables remains the same. So when I multiply x and y, I always get the same result. So that's what you see here. There are two ways to think about it. One is written as a y equals. The other is written as a k equals, and k is what we call the constant, okay? It's the constant of variation. So I'm going to write that down for us. And the constant of variation, k is the constant of variation. That is that number that y and x relationship always goes to. So like here in direct variation, that k is equal to y divided by x. Whereas under inverse variation, k is constant when you do x times y. You multiply the two. So there's kind of three main types of problems you're going to see here on this lesson. So I'm going to do examples of each. First things first, you need to be able to convert these equations written in one form into direct or inverse variation form. And really what it means here is you need to solve for y. That is the key to these problems. So most of these are pretty straightforward. They're going to be like one-step equations. So like here, if I want to solve for y, I'm going to divide by x on both sides. And so I get y equals 12 divided by x. And that would be my answer for that first problem. More or less the same on all of these. Just one step to move whatever needs to be moved so that y is by itself. Here I'm going to add 2x to both sides. That gives me y equals 2x. And then down here, I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And I'm going to get y equals x over 7. And that's all you're doing on these first few problems starting here in number 3. And then it asks, solve it for the y and choose whether it's direct or inverse variation. So what you have to do is you have to look and see is what's remaining y equals a fraction? If so, that's inverse variation. Or y equals a product. If so, that's direct variation. So looking at my examples, this one would be inverse variation. So would number 3, because the resulting equation is y equals k over x or x over k, depending on what one it is. And then this would be direct because it's a product of x and a number. So that's how you know which type it is. Then they're going to give you a list of numbers, and they're going to ask you, is this direct or inverse variation? And so what you have to do is you basically have to test each type of variation. In other words, this is an x and y value for each one of these points, and you're going to take those and put them into the formulas you see here. So for direct, I would do k equals 4 over, or I did it backwards, 6 over 4, k equals 8 over 3, and k equals 12 over 2. And then I want to see, do I get the same answer for k in each of these equations? So let's open up a graph or a calculator here. And we'll see, first one was 6 divided by 4, 1.5, 8 divided by 3, 8 divided by 3 is 2.66. So you can already see this is not going to work for 2.67. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So since these are not the same, it's no. It's not direct variation. So we go over to inverse. Probably guess it's going to be inverse variation, but let's see why. We're going to do k equals 4 times 6, k equals 3 times 8, and k equals 2 times 12. We're multiplying each pair. We get 24 for that one, 24 for this one, and 24 for this one. Since those are all the same, then it's yes, it is inverse variation. That would be the answer for the type of variation represented by that set of values. All right, scrolling down, this is the last type of question that you're going to see. It asks what the variation results in for another value. So they're going to tell us what type of variation we have, direct. They're going to give us two values for that variation. All right, so when we have this, we're going to go look at the direct variation formula. We're going to run up here, and we're going to see the direct variation formula is k equals y over x. And we're going to find k. We're going to do k equals y over x. Y is 15, and x is 3. And so k is 5. So that's super important. And then we're going to take the other version of the formula, and we're going to plug in the values right here. Y equals k over x. We're going to take y equals k over x, and we're going to say, okay, well then y equals 5, and x, well, for the new x was 11. Oh, I just did this backwards. It's y equals k times x. Oh, I wrote that down correctly. So I just wrote this part. So k times x, so it's going to be 5 times 11. And so then y would equal 55 when x equals 11. So again, to recap, you use the direct variation formula, plug in y and x to find the k value, and then switch over to the y equals formula to find the other. Now we have one where it says there is inverse variation. So we have inverse variation. And so we're going to roll up here, and we're going to find the inverse variation formula, which is k equals xy. So k equals xy ends up being 10 times 12, which is 120. So then k equals 120. So once I have that, I go back and I find the formula with the y equals. And it's y equals k over x. Y equals k over x, which gives me 4 equals 120 divided by x. That means 120 divided by x. If I switch the 4 and the x, this ends up being x equals 120 divided by 4. Remember, in a proportion, you can always switch these values with each other. So 120 divided by 4 is x equals 30, because 30 times 4 is 120 as well. And so that's what you're doing starting with the rest of this. So we already talked about 6 and 7, and then starting with number 8, they're going to tell you the type of variation. They're going to give you two of the values. You need to find what k equals, and then use the other formula to find what y equals. And that's what you're going to do for number 8, number 9, number 10, number 11, 12, 13. And then 14 and 15 are the same type of problem, but hidden in a word problem form. They still tell you what type of variation you have, and they give you two values. Direct, and they give you two values. So you still plug in those values as the x and the y value regardless, and you'll get the result that you need. So that is it for lesson 4. Hopefully that was helpful. Please reach out to me if you have questions. And that is it for the video.